Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar for today. Today we will discuss Unit 1 from Geometry. Geometry is an introductory course to geometry. It's not the type of course that you should worry about. It is only basics of geometry. Together we will have 4 webinars, one for each unit, and each webinar will discuss the most challenging topics in each unit. So today we will discuss Unit 1, and Unit 1 is the basics, the really basics of geometry, points, lines, planes, and angles. That's me. My name is Mariam. I'm your math instructor at Penn Foster. I am certified to teach high school math in the state of Pennsylvania, and also I'm working towards my master's, and hopefully this year I will be finishing and earning my degree. Today in this webinar, as I said, Unit 1 will be the topic of our discussions. Some of the topics that I receive lots of questions on and I see students struggle with are the part of discussion that we will have throughout the webinar. Also throughout the webinar, we're going to have self-check questions. So after major discussion of some topics, we will have an opportunity for you to solve a question on that topic, about a minute or so. Those questions are not graded. Those questions are for your self-assessment and see if you are understanding the topic, or if you still need help and maybe you want to reread something from your study unit, maybe you want to go back and do some practice questions, maybe you want to call the school on that topic. So these questions within this webinar is not by any means to judge how much you understand or how good you are in geometry. This is only just to help you to see where you are. Also, your questions are welcome. You can type them in the questions box. The raise your hand feature is not enabled. So if you have a question and you think it's relevant to what we speak about within the webinar, you're able to type in the question. I'm able to see who asked the question and what the question is. If your question is a more of a general question, we can leave that till the end of the webinar. If your question relates to what we speak about at that moment, I can answer that right away. The topics discussed in this webinar is not everything that you need to know for the exam, but those topics, as I said, are the most challenging ones. All registrants for this webinar, whether you are here today with us or you were not able to make it today for the webinar, will receive a recorded webinar for yourself to keep and rewatch as many times as you wish. Today we will look at angles. We will classify angles. We will look at the system when two lines are parallel and they are cut by a transversal. What happens? What kind of angles that we need to learn or locate? We will learn how to calculate angle measures that has degrees, minutes, and seconds. And also we will relate time and angle measure. So let's start with the basics of geometry. So geometry is about measurements, angles, lines, intersections, points. So we are really starting from the real basics of geometry and build upon these basics. So how do I classify? How do we classify angles? We can classify angles depending on how much they measure. So of an angle, I'm going to look at this one here on the top left of the screen. If this angle measures, for example, 30 degrees, 30 degrees is less than 90 degrees. Any angle that measures less than 90 degrees, we call it an acute angle. So this angle is acute. So if this angle measure was 40, 45, 42, 51, 89, we're still going to call that angle acute angle. A special kind of angle is the right angle, and right angles, they measure exactly 90 degrees, and we call them right angles. Now, the box that is in the corner of this angle will give you the information that this angle is 90 degrees. I need to mention that with geometry, any course in geometry, whether it's a high school geometry or a college course in geometry, the book that you will study from, the exam that you will have on those topics, do not draw angles or distances according to a scale. So if an angle looks like a 90 degrees, but it doesn't have the box here, you cannot assume that it's 90 degrees. Maybe it's 87 degrees. So the only way to make sure that this angle is 90 degrees, for example, is to see the um, symbol here with a box, and you tell right away it's a 90 degrees. Or another way is to prove that this angle, for example, is 30 degrees. You have a solid proof that tells you that this angle is 30, not 29, for example. And so these are the cases you can use angle measures as values. So you do not guess them. Either you get them directly from the question or the figure, or you're able to prove them. So acute and right angles. The third kind of angles are obtuse angles. And obtuse angles are angles that measures more than 90 degrees, but still less than 180 degrees. So an angle that measures 100 degrees is an obtuse angle. An angle measured that measures 172 degrees is an obtuse angle. It's more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. Let's look at this one. This angle looks like a straight line. Well, this angle actually has a vertex, and these two rays are the rays of the angle. So this is actually a special kind of angle that we call a straight angle. And a straight angle always gonna be a straight line like that, and it's gonna measure exactly 180 degrees. And this is a straight angle because it's a straight line. The final one, and I think it's uncommon for us to encounter that in questions, but it is good to know, is the reflex angle. So reflex angles, they measure more than 180 degrees. So if this angle, and notice that I did not look for this angle measure from the inside, I'm looking for the outside because it's more than 80 degrees. If you think about it, if I'm going to extend that ray here, that makes the 180 degrees, but the angle goes further than that, and that's why it's more than 180 degrees. It's a reflex angle, and let's say if it's 210 degrees, it's a reflex angle. So this way we classify angles according to their measure, how much they measure. And you know, the milestones that we have are 90 degrees and 180 degrees. Less than 90 degrees, we call them some name, and more than 90 degrees, we call them other names. Let's look at the self-check question. This is the type of the question I was referring to in the beginning. It's not graded again if you have just joined us. It's not graded, it's just for you to assess yourself. So let's read the question together. After we read that and inspect that question, my screen and your screen will change and will give you the question and also answer choices, and you need to pick the one that you think is correct. So angle A measures 70 degrees, angle B measures 120 degrees. Another or a third angle C is the sum of both of those angles. What would be angle C? How would you classify C to be? So let's put the question up, and I'll give you about a minute to think about the question, and we can get back to that. And here you go. Okay, let's do the question together. You're going to simply add the measure of angle A and B together because that will give you the measure of angle C. You'll find out it's 190 degrees. 190 degrees is greater than 180 degrees. So that will tell you that this angle C is a reflex angle. That's it. Okay, let's look at another kind of a way to classify angles. We classify angle pairs either to be complementary pairs or complementary angles, supplementary angles, or just none of them. Let's see how. So we have two angles, ABC and XYZ. One measures 100 degrees and the other one measures 80 degrees. If these two angles they add their measures and it happened to be exactly, the sum of that happened to be exactly 180 degrees, then this pair of angle we can call supplementary pair or supplementary angles. So this pair is supplementary because you simply added 100 plus 80 and that gives you exactly 180 degrees. And that's why we were able to classify that pair to be supplementary pair. Complementary pairs, if you add the measures of them, it will give you exactly 90 degrees like the bottom example here. 30 plus 60 will give you exactly 90 degrees. Then you can say that this pair is complementary pair or complementary angles. Now, what if you have another kind of angles like 10 degrees and 30 degrees? So this is 30 and this is 10. You add them up and you're asked to see if they are supplementary, complementary, or not. You're going to just add up the measures. 10 and 30 is 40. 40 is not 90 degrees and it's not 180 degrees. Then this pair doesn't make supplementary pair or complementary, it's just none of them. So it is possible that you have a pair of angles that it's not complementary or supplementary. It is possible. Those bubbles, before I leave that slide, those bubbles you're going to see throughout my webinar will have the summary of the rules that we will work with. So it just says complementary angles, the sum of them is 90, supplementary 180 degrees, and then there is another chance that the two angles or that pair is none. So if you want to write these rules on your notebook, on the side, on the margin, so when you're doing the exam or you are studying, you have like a cheat sheet. You have to go back and forth with your study units. Let's see another structure where you have supplementary, complementary, or none. Now, the previous slide, you had the two angles in one pair separated. They were not adjacent. In this slide, you have two angles, but this time they are adjacent angles. So before I go into the complementary, supplementary things, I want to define what is an adjacent angle. By the name, they are attached together. So angle BCD and DCA, they share two things. They share a vertex, which is C, and also they share one ray, which is CD. And that's why we call that pair adjacent pair or adjacent angles. Now, if you are given that question here in this question, and it's asking you, what is the angle measure of the angle DCA? So this is the unknown. How would I use the concept of complementary, supplementary angles to solve that? Well, first I noticed something. I noticed that the angle ACB, it is obvious to me that it's a straight line. It's a straight line. Then that makes me think that this angle, which is ACB, is 180 degrees. Now, since the two angles are adjacent, they make up 180 degrees, then this pair is supplementary pair. Part of the 180 degrees is 50. What would be the other part? Subtract 180 minus 50. That will give you the angle measure of DCA, which is 130 degrees. Obtuse angle. That's it. So from our knowledge that this is a straight line, it solved our problem. It gave us an information that we needed to find the unknown measure of the angle. Let's look at this example where I see here a straight angle, I'm sorry, a right angle, and I didn't make this up or guess. I saw that they have mentioned in my figure that this angle is 90 degrees angle by placing that box or that square in the corner of the angle. So angle OMN is a 90 degrees angle. So this pair PMN and PMO is complementary angles or complementary pair. Part of the pair or part of the larger angle is 70 degrees, but the sum is 90. What would be the angle measure of OMP? The same manner. So 90 minus 70, that will give you the angle measure 20 for this angle, 20 degrees. Well, in these two cases, one was a complementary pair, one was a supplementary pair, one was a complementary pair. What if we have two adjacent angles? They are none. They don't sum up to 180, and also they do not sum up to 90 degrees. What would be the case in that question? Well, in this question, I see something. Two adjacent angles, but the larger angle, y, x, z, the measure of the angle is given in the question because I cannot guess. It's not a 90-degree angle. It's not a straight line. Then they have to give me the angle measure that is the larger one. So the total or the sum of these two angles is 65. Part of it is 15. What should I do to find the angle measure ZXW? Subtract 65 minus 15, and that will give you 50 degrees. And that's it. So we need to look at the figure, and I always repeat that in my webinars, especially for geometry. It's not enough for us to read the question as the wording of the question and ignore the figure. The figure will give us too much information. So example, if the question on that one pair said, well, angle DCB is 50 degrees. What is the angle measure of ACD? If you do not pay attention to the name of the angles, you wouldn't know that they are adjacent, and you wouldn't know that they are a straight angle. They make up a straight angle. So looking at the figures, even in the other units, 2, 3, and 4, we need a figure. We need to make up ourselves a figure or use the figure given in the question. Let's look at a self-check question here. Examine the figure below, then answer the following questions. Okay, so let's see what they're asking us. The angle pair ABC, so when I see an angle in the question, I want to go back to my figure and see where is that angle on my figure. Maybe its position gives me an idea about how I'm going to answer the question. So ABC is this angle. The angle pair ABC and CBD, CBD, this one. So it's talking about these two angles. They are adjacent angles, right? They are what? So it gives you some answer choices. Let's see what they are giving us here. So here is the screen will change. What they are: supplementary, pair, complementary pair, or none. What do you think? Okay, let's then review. Complementary pairs, they add up to 90 degrees, which is the case here. DBA is the larger angle, and it is 90 degrees. I know it's for sure 90 degrees because the box here says it's 90 degrees. Then I am able to say that this pair is complementary. Okay, let's look at question 2. Angle EBA is what? So EBA, let's change the color so we don't get confused. EBA is what? EBA is the large one here. What is it? So let's look at the choices. The choices are, is this angle EBA is an acute angle, obtuse angle, or a straight angle? So I'm gonna put up the options so you're able to choose from. Here you go. Okay, so the way we are able to classify angles by acute, obtuse, or straight is to know the exact measure of that angle. Well, I know part of the big angle here is 90, but this one is 20. Add them up, that will give you 110 degrees. 110 degrees is greater than 90, but still less than 180 degree. So this angle is an obtuse angle. Okay, last question on that self-check. It is asking you the measure of angle FBE. Where is that? FBE. So they're speaking about this angle here. What would be the measure here? Anything that will give us an idea or an information that is beneficial for us to calculate the measure of this angle? And here's the question and the choices here. Okay, what we did and what we have used, we used the information on the figure that FBA is a straight angle and therefore it measures 180 degrees. A part of the 180 degrees is 110 degrees. So these two angles, this one and this one, is supplementary angles. Do the subtraction and you will find out that the measure of this angle is 70 degrees. That's it. Okay, let's come to the most challenging topic in this unit. I mean, all of them are challenging, but this one is the most one I get questions on, and I get answers for these questions from the exam. The most are incorrect from that topic. So let's spend some time on this system. That system, you have two parallel lines, and the parallel lines are L1 and L2, or A, C, and E, G. So these are parallel. Another line, D, H, is a transversal because it cuts through the two lines. What happens when this happens is that some angles are formed. So we need, within the scope of that unit, we need to locate and learn the relationships of different pairs of angles, like the vertical angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and corresponding angles. Where can I locate them on that figure? Or maybe the figure may be given to me and I need to say what kind of pairs they are. Okay, so I'm gonna follow the color coding I have here. So vertical angles would be in blue. So vertical angles, as the name says, they share a vertex. So example, this angle and this angle is vertical angles or vertical pair. There are, in that system or that structure, we have total number of 4 pairs of vertical angles. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The rule says, or the fact says, that any vertical angles within one pair have equal measure. So example, if I have this angle measured as 30 degrees, then this one that belongs to the same pair of vertical angles measures the same, 30 degrees. Alternate interior angles. What do we mean by that? It's a long name. How would I locate that? So the easiest way I found to remember how to find them on the figure is to understand the name of that pair. So alternate means that one of the angles that in that pair would be to the left of the transversal, and the other one should be on the right of the transversal. So that's why they alternate. Interior, that would be the space within the two parallel lines. So this space here is the interior. So one angle should be here and the other angle should be there. Okay, let's look then. So one is gonna be here and the other one is there. And they alternate. They alternate, one to the right, one to the left, and also one to the top and one to the bottom. And they are within the interior of the two lines. And this is how I can identify those two angles within that one pair. So alternate interior angles have the same measure. So let's move on with our example. Since we said this is 3, this is a straight angle, then these two pairs are supplementary angles, then this angle must measure 150 degrees. Check your work. 150 plus 30 should give you 180, which is a straight line. This angle and this angle are alternate interior angles, then this angle EFB should be also 150 degrees. Alternate exterior angles. So alternate part we understood. One to the left, one to the right, one to the top, and one to the bottom. Okay, what about the exterior? Where is the exterior in that figure? The exterior will be two spaces here. Exterior, and this is another exterior. So one would be here and one would be there. Okay, so let's locate one pair of that. So another one would be, for example, this angle here. So this is to the left of the transversal to the top. So I need one to the bottom and to the right. So it's here. And both of them are to the or on the exterior space of that system. So again, the rule says that any two angles in the same alternate exterior pair will have the same measure. Okay, so let's move on further with our example. These two angles are vertical angles. They should have the same measure. So this is 150. This angle and this angle are alternate exterior angles. So they should have the same measure. That makes this angle measure 150 degrees as well. I need to mention that alternate exterior angles, for these we have two pairs in that system, and also I need to go back to the alternate interior angles. We have two pairs. Let's go to the last type of pairs that we need to find on here, corresponding angles. So the name means that each angle in that pair will have the same corresponding, the same relevant or relative position to the line and to the transversal. Too much. Let's locate them and then go back to explain the name. So corresponding angles would be, an example would be this angle and this angle. Okay, so let's go back to the corresponding meaning. So this angle is to the right of the transversal and to the top of one of the lines. Same thing with here. It has a corresponding position to the right of the transversal and to the top of one or the other line. So these angles are corresponding angles and they have the same measure. This is 30 and this is 30. That's it. So how many we have? We have four pairs of corresponding angles. Any question here? Anything that was not clear or created some confusion, or maybe you expected me to say something here but I didn't say? Okay, let's then go to a self-check question on this topic and see what we have. Okay. For this one, I'm going to prefer to do that with you. So because it's a challenging one, confusing, too many things to take care of. So I'm going to do that with you. And hopefully that way we will have more practice on that topic. So the question says, if line 1 and 2, so line 1 and 2 are parallel, and this is the condition that we need to have that structure and that, relationship between the two vertical angles and the two alternate interior angles. Without these lines being parallel, these facts are not valid. So they need to mention in the question, or maybe give us a sign on the lines that these lines are parallel. What are the measures of the following angles? So we are looking for measures. Measure of NCB. NCB. Okay, let's look here. So NCB is NCB, this one here. What do you think? How can I find the angle measure of that? I can do that in a multi-step way or just one step. I have this angle given as 30 degrees. Can I relate this angle with this angle? Is it one of the four pairs that we spoke about, vertical, alternate interior, alternate exterior, or corresponding? What do you think? Alternate exterior, exactly, and we know that they have the same measure, then it's 30 degrees. Then the answer should be 30 degrees and it should give a reason. If I am asked to give a reason, or maybe one of the exam questions saying this angle and this angle are equal, the reason for that is, and you're given four choices, so that the reason is alternate exterior pair with A, D, M, which is the one given here. Done. Or a multi-step solution would be, well, 30 and this angle is 30 vertical angles. This one and this one are corresponding angles, and I'm going to have the same answer, 30. Okay, let's look at another question. What is the measure of NCD? Where is that? NCD, here. What would be the angle measure here? How can I find that? Well, I can say, this angle NCB is 30 degrees. This line is a transversal line. It's a straight line. That makes this angle and this angle belongs to a supplementary pair. Then I can, by subtracting, I do 180 minus 30, and that will give me the angle measure here, which is 150. I just noticed that those numbers matches the one we did in the previous slide, which is a very rare coincidences, because just made up the one before. So 150, so this is 150. And the reason are supplementary pairs. Okay, let's do the last one. The measure of MDC. Okay, where is that on the figure? And always I need to speak loud, maybe even if you can try that, maybe if you're alone, you can speak a little bit loud to yourself and try to think of yourself as a group of people thinking together. Where is that angle? Let's locate that angle. Oh, where is that? I can see that. Oh, here. Okay, here's the angle. It's going to take you a while to do a self-talk until you are able to do the questions, you know, in, no time, in quickly, just to see where's the angle. Oh, this is vertical angles. Okay, this is 30, this is 100. It's going to take you a while, but in the beginning, you need to do the self-talk to take it step by step, to justify each step that you're doing in that question and know why. Okay, MDC is here. What would be that? Well, a way I'm gonna say about or talk about is alternate interior angles. 150, that makes this 152. 150 as well. And the reason is alternate interior angles with angle, and that should be, let's name that X, D. That's it. It's simple. It just may be overwhelming to look at those angles in one space like that. But time by time, by practice, asking questions, checking your answers, you will get there. Any question here? Anything that was not clear? Okay, let's go ahead to the next topic. The question says, find the complement of an angle that measures 45 degrees, 17 minutes, and 42 seconds. And these obviously are the symbols for the fractions of 1 degree. So this is the minutes and this is the seconds. Okay, now another thing we need to keep in mind whenever we're working with math or really any subject, keywords. So there is a reason they are telling us that this angle and the angle we're trying to find are complementary pair. There is a reason for that. Usually there is a reason. And usually it's beneficial for us to use the keywords to conclude things and use them to solve the question. So we know that two pairs are complementary pairs when they add up to 90 degrees, meaning that if I am going to subtract 90 degrees from this measure, that will give me the angle measure that makes itself and this angle complementary pair. Let's do that with numbers. So since I have columns of things, I have degrees, minutes, and seconds, I'm gonna set up my subtraction the vertical way, the old way that we used to do subtraction in elementary school. So I'm gonna say, well, 90 degrees. How many minutes then? Or how many seconds? Well, a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Then I have 0 minutes and 0 seconds minus the angle given, 45 degrees, 17 minutes, and 42 seconds. And I'm going to subtract. If you remember back in elementary school, when we used to do that, we used to borrow if needed. So we're going to learn now how to borrow if we need to. Okay, so let's do subtraction. If you remember as well, we go from right to left. So we do not do 90 minus 45. We do the 0 minus 42 first. And as you can see, 0 minus 42 is not possible. So we need to go back to the column, to the left and see if they can give us something to work with. Well, it has a 0 too, so it's not helpful. Let's go to the far left column. It has 90 degrees. Let's borrow 1 degree from that 90. So this 90 will no longer become a 90. It will become 89 because it gave us 1 degree. I'm going to give it to the minutes column. How many minutes in 1 degree? This is factual information. So 1 degree equals to 60 minutes, and 1 minute equals to 60 seconds. So when I got that 1 degree from here and gave it to the minutes column, I have to represent it in terms of minutes. 60 minutes. Is it time for me to do 60 minus 17? No. I need to do the far right column first. So I need to borrow because my column here I'm trying to do still has a 0. So 60 minutes will give us 1 minute. So that 60 will no longer be 60, it will be 59 minutes. And since 1 minute is 60 seconds, then this column has now 60 seconds. Now I can subtract 60 minus 42 will give you 18 seconds. 59 minus 17 will give you 42 minutes. And then 89 minus 45 will give you 44 degrees. Now, these two angles, this one and this one is the complementary pair. If you add them up back, you will have exactly 90 degrees. This is complementary pair. And that's it. Any question? Anything wasn't clear or you expected something to be said here and wasn't? You can type your questions with the questions box if you have some questions. So let's look at a self-check on the topic. So let's look at this question. Find the supplement. The supplement, it's a keyword. I need to use this. Supplement of an angle that measures 130 degrees, 25 minutes, and 40 seconds. Really the same question that we did in the previous slide. The only difference is what? I'm gonna leave you figure this out. So this is the question, and have a minute or so to do it yourself and see what answer you have. I'm gonna wait for a few more seconds for everyone to get a chance to enter their answers. For this one, I'm going to share my final answer. If you need me to work out the problem, let me know. So the final answer, the angle that makes a supplementary pair with this angle measures 49 degrees, 34 minutes, and 20 seconds. So again, if you want me to do that, let me know. You can just type yes or please or sure, so I would know that at least one would like to see that problem. If not, that's okay. I know that you're going to receive the recording and hopefully we'll pause and do that question later, and you're going to make sure that you have the same answer. If not, and you still doesn't get how we do it, you can email, for example. through your help center in your student portal and say, hey, this question was part of the webinar. I didn't get the same question. I worked it out like 2 times, but I cannot figure it out. Can you explain? So somebody will answer your question with some maybe graphics or attachments that will help you to visualize what we do in that question. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. What is the angle measure between the clock hands when it is 4 o'clock? Okay, so here we're relating time with angle measure. What the question is asking is, what would be the angle measure, this one here, between the clock hands? So these are like 2 rays. The position of the arms of the clock in terms of time, it's 4 o'clock. What about in terms of angle measure? What do we do in that case? Okay, well, you may ask, some clocks now, they are square, some of them are triangles. Well, the motion of the hands are circular. This is what we look at. Okay, that tells us or makes us think of a circle. So we know from our so basic geometry information that one full circle, one full round of a circle is equivalent to what? Is equivalent to 360 degrees. This is in terms of angle measure. In terms of time, one round is how many hours? One round. 12 hours. So now I am relating based on factual information that we know. One full circle, which is one round around the clock, is 360 degrees, and also it is 12 hours. Now I related both the time and angle measure together. Now I know something. There is given in the question that now the time is 4 o'clock. So I can put 4 here, 4 hours. So remember that fraction here? So proportion, what we are trying to put together here, proportion is 2 equal fractions. 2 fractions that we know they are equal, but it has one of the values missing, and it's our job to calculate that. So I know 360 equals to 12 hours, and also given that now currently the time is 4 hours, what would be the angle measure here? The way I solve proportions, and I think it's a good way, but you can find your own way if you don't like it or you see it's confusing, is multiply the 2 known values. So you need to cross multiply to be specific the two known values. So we're going to multiply and then divide on the remaining one. So that makes the angle measure, let's call it C as in clock. So measure of angle C equals to multiply 4 times 360 divide over 12. So now you just do it. Punch it in on your calculator. If you want to do the manual math with your pen and paper, you're welcome to. So multiply and then divide. That will give you 120 what? Degrees. So this angle measure, when it's 4 o'clock, it's 120 degrees. That's it. Any questions? Anything that didn't make sense? Anything that we didn't know why we used it this way? Okay, let's practice a self-check question on the same topic. Different givens, but the same topic. What is the angle measure between the clock hands when it's 2 o'clock this time? So 2 o'clock, this is the angle measure that they are looking for. Okay, I'm going to help you set up the proportion because maybe it's your first time to see that. So I'm going to help you set up the 2 fractions. One will have a denominator of 360. This is how much or how many degrees is in full circle. And also one full circle in terms of time, it is 12 hours. what would you place here and what would you place here? Which one is the known and which one is the unknown? I'm going to leave you to figure out this yourself and choose your answer. I'm going to wait for a few seconds here for everyone to get a chance to participate if they wish to. Okay, so let's do that together. So it is simple. It's 2 o'clock, so 2 will be placed here. The unknown, let's call it a measure of angle C. Multiply, divide, so multiply and divide. That makes our expression looks like that. Measure of angle C equals to 2 times 360 over 12, and that will give you 60 degrees. So this is 60 degrees. That's it. Any questions? Okay, let's move on to the last slide in my webinar here, which is really something that you want to read through at your own time. This is basically a summary of a section in your unit that tells you how would you manually using a protractor and the tools that we use to draw circles and angles, how would you construct angles from scratch using just pen and those tools and paper. So the 3 paragraphs you see here are just a summary of what appears in your unit about this topic. Since we have it in the unit, it may appear in the exam or something, then I just thought to summarize that for you. In real life, I believe that if you chose your career to deal with constructing like building and putting things on paper that you have to put down exact angle measures. Nowadays we use softwares which is like way accurate than our hand-drawn angles, but still if it's required for us to know that, it's not going to harm us just to read through it and just understand it and maybe answer the question in the exam. And that's it. Today, in today's webinar, we learned how to classify angles depending on its measure, how to classify them depending on their sum of the measure. If it's 180 degrees, supplementary, 90 is going to be complementary pair or none. We also looked at the structure. We have 2 parallel lines and 1 transversal line. We learned how to locate 4 types of angle pairs. Also, we related time and angle measure. We use degrees, minutes, and seconds in our calculations to find either a complementary or a supplementary angle within one pair. For the exam, the most useful tool I see for the exam is that we provided the answer keys for all of the practice exercises within your unit. So after each discussion of each lesson, you have practice exercises, you have questions. In a separate document within the space of the course, within the space of geometry in your portal, you will find a supplement that says check your angle answer key supplement. You need to download that file. It has all of the answers of these practice exercises. So the way you want to use that is read the lesson, understand the examples, maybe work out a few of them, and then get your own notebook or whatever, loose paper or binder, and work out every single problem. For each one of them, go back to that document and check your answer. Most of your answer are correct means that you are fairly ready for the exam. Most of them are incorrect. It means that you should not attempt the exam. I need to remind you that the retake policy has changed to enforce that students do their best in the first exam. So if you pass an exam with a low passing grade, you will not gonna be offered a retake exam. Only if you fail the first attempt of the exam, you'll be offered a retake, and even the retake, the maximum grade of the retake will be only 65, even if you scored an A in the exam itself, but the grade that will appear in your portal will be 65. That's the maximum grade, or whatever lower grade you're going to get. That would be your grade showing. So that would motivate you to just do your best in the first exam. Resources, how do you get help in that course? Email. You can email that, you can screenshot or snap part of the screen that has the question, email it to the school, and you can do that through your help center, or sometimes it's called the help and support center. You can ask for help with a question. You can ask for a general help on how to study for geometry, for example, or you can call 9 to 6 Eastern Time, weekdays is our operation hours. Also, there is life help for geometry, and that is Wednesdays 2 to 3 Eastern Time. You do not need to register for that hour. You just want to use that link, and that will make you join that hour. So this hour, basically, you bring in a question, and the instructor answers that. Khanacademy.org, it's a non-Penn Foster resource, but it's a free resource out there. It's very neat, very organized, and very reliable. You can check khanacademy.org for instructional videos. YouTube, of course, is free. So if you're not sure how to find a complementary angle measure of the second angle, so how do I do that? Search by topic, watch videos. So that will, help you through understanding everything. And that's it. Thank you for your attendance. If you do not have any questions for me, even a general question about the webinar or the course, or maybe a general question on the program itself, I can end the webinar, but I'm going to wait for about 30 seconds for you to think of a question that you really want to ask, and I'll be happy to answer. And as you know, you can type in your questions. You cannot raise your hand. So if you don't have questions, or if you have them, you can type them, and I'll do my best to answering them. Okay, then the recording will be emailed to you in a follow-up email in a couple of days. So if you don't get the email today, don't panic. It's going to just take a while until we convert everything and make sure that it is there, and then send it out to you possibly by Thursday morning. You should get that. Sometimes in Thursday, you should get that follow-up email. Make sure to use that webinar if you think it is a good resource to prepare for the exam. Thank you so much, and good luck.